welcome back to today's lesson. This week we are talking about forgiveness. And so yesterday and the day before we talked a little bit about the importance of forgiveness. And today I want to talk to you about the key to forgiving others. So the key to forgiving others is found in Acts chapter 7 verse 60. It says, "Then falling on his knees, he cried out with a loud voice, 'Lord, do not hold this sin against them.' Having said this, he fell asleep." Now, we talked about the fact that Stephen in this text is being stoned to death. We talked a little bit about the fact that you would have broken bones and it was a painful thing. But did you know that sometimes stoning someone to death took as much as 2 hours? See, the people that were stoning them to death would stop every 20 minutes or so to rest. Now, can you just picture that in your mind as someone's being stoned to death, and while they're writhing in pain, the people doing it stop for a moment because they're a bit tired and they need to gain their energy to be able to pick the rocks back up and throw it again. It's just not only inhumane, but it is so absolutely cruel. In the midst of that, while he is being stoned and going through all of this pain, the Bible says that Stephen calls out to God in the middle of it and says to forgive them, right? So this is what's important. What Stephen is doing here is Stephen is interceding for the very people that are killing him. Look at this. In Luke chapter 23, verse 33, it says, "When they came to the place called the Skull, where they crucified him, and the criminals, one on the right and the other on the left. But Jesus was saying, 'Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing.' And they cast lots, dividing up his garments among themselves." So what we see here is exactly what we saw in the story of Stephen. Here's Jesus in the act of being crucified, an absolutely horrendous and brutal way to be put to death. He cries out to God and says, "Forgive them, for they know not what they do." Now, that is absolutely incredible. Here we have two stories of two people being put to death for the gospel, right? And I mean, Jesus was being put to death ultimately for the gospel, but you know the whole story, right? He's proclaiming to be God in the flesh, because he is, as we know through John chapter 1. And so here he is being put to death, and he cries out and says, "Father, forgive them." And so let me ask you, have you ever tried to stay mad at someone when you begin to pray for them and intercede for them? It's not very easy if you have truth and it's a genuine prayer in your heart. When you start to pray for someone that is doing you wrong, and you start praying for them and asking God to forgive them for it, asking God to encourage them and strengthen them in the midst of their turmoil or whatever they're going through. Listen, what you're going to find is you are going to find that your heart will start to soften. See, this is the key to forgiveness. This is why the world struggles so much with forgiveness. And this is why a lot of people who haven't been taught, that go to church, struggle with forgiveness, because they're never taught to intercede for those who are hurting you. Intercede for those who are your enemy. When you begin to intercede and you begin to pray from a soft heart toward those who are your enemies, you will begin to find that forgiveness begins to come much, much easier. This is the key to it all. So my question for you is this: whoever has hurt you, are you interceding for them? Are you going to intercede for them? This is the key. This is the key. So until we meet again, may God bless you.